to order. Please stand and join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. Next on the agenda is approval of the meeting agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I move that we accept the agenda as written.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oh, sorry. I wasn't supposed to do that. Agenda approved. Let the record request that President Patty is working tonight. His absence is excused. And we are at public comments on agenda items. And we have two, Mr. and Mrs. Rhodes. You didn't say whether or not you wanted to address the board. Okay. And Ken, do you want to do that now, or do you want to do it when your topic comes up?
Now would be fine, if
Okay.
that's all right.
That's fine.
Thank you, directors. I appreciate the public hearing last night with WDFW, and really appreciated the chance to be able to comment. I just wanted to make sure that you all received a copy of the email I sent you, particularly the part about the 2012 trail breach. I think it's important to consider that as that repair is the responsibility of the school district. A couple things came to mind after the meeting last evening, and the property, as several of the commenters noted, was willed to the local community, not to the WDFW. With all due respect, the WDFW is a bureaucracy, and with a constantly changing workforce, they don't have the same history with the Feller Center that this local community does. And I just wanted to mention that whether you folks decide to sell it to the WDFW or transfer it to the DFW, I just ask that you consider that the school district insist on some sort of a local advisory group or a focus group to the WDFW. I think that's very important. And I think it would behoove the school district to have a board member sit on that advisory group. And as I mentioned last night, I would like to see that freshwater pond and trail restored to its original condition, whoever ends up with the property. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, and we are now at the oath of office for Morgan Van Hoek.
Woo.
All right.
All right. So, Morgan, repeat after each other. Repeat after me. I, Morgan Van Hoek,
I, Morgan College,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
and the Constitution and laws of the State of Washington,
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform and discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of student board member,
of student board member,
North Mason School District,
North Mason School District,
Board of Directors,
Board of Directors,
according to law,
according to law,
to the best of my
to
ability.
the best of my ability.
Thank you. Congratulations.
All right.
So you're officially on board now. Welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, board member comments. Let's start down here. Art.
I don't have very much to report this month, other than a sort of an update on the computer problems that I've been having. I'm still having them. I did take the computer back a couple days ago thinking that I could finally get on. I can get on, but I can't get anything on. It's so slow that I'm literally waiting 10 minutes and it's still not cycling to get the next page. So I gave up and came early tonight. In any case, that's still not been fixed. They're still promising to fix it, and they are the Girl Scouts with their tech people, and it's just unfortunately the camp is low priority because we're in the off season. And although I just had a group of the zombies, and they were without. And I have a group of Girl Scout adults coming next weekend, and they may be without, but in any case, that's the main problem. So I'm just still having difficulty keeping up with stuff. But it's coming back. And then I wanted to report also on the Scholarship Foundation, which you're a member of too. We concluded that year, got our 1099s all done and that sort of stuff. And so far, it looks like we had a successful year, and our assets are over $1.3 million for scholarships at this
All right.
point.
Wow. Thanks, Ed.
You're welcome.
John?
I have two things. Superintendent Rosenbach sent you folks the information about WASDA and how to keep tabs of what's going. I would just urge everyone that there is a conference call tomorrow at noon, and everyone is welcome to be part of that. And I recommend that you do. The legislative session, as you all know, started this last week, and we need to keep abreast of what's happening. The other thing I would like to mention is I urge everyone who possibly can to go to our Day on the Hill, and that's on February 10th and 11th. The 10th is a Sunday, and so that's kind of orientation for what's going to happen on Monday. And it's good for us to have numbers there, as I think all of you are very much aware what the legislature does affects us very much. And so this is an opportunity for us to be on board and on point and remind the legislature that we appreciate all that they've done. We've come a long way, and we've got a long way yet to go. So I would just urge you to do that. The other thing that I'm just going to mention this evening and will offer as a motion tomorrow. Time flies when you're having a good time. It was my privilege this last Saturday to go down to Olympia and judge the state finalists for the We the People program. And these are the top teams, and they were all very good. And every team would have done credit to its school. 2 from Tacoma, which produces winners much of the time. 1 was so good, I thought I'd died and gone to graduate school seminar heaven. Would you believe 1 gave a rationale for the Constitution starting with Aaron? It was like sort of reverse rosary beads or something. He started with Aristotle, worked his way to Locke, and then worked his way to the part of the Constitution for which he was arguing. And even one of them quoted the contemporary philosopher John Rawls. I mean, what do you want? That was really good. It deserves our support. And so what I'm suggesting is that I'll offer formally next time. WASDA used to have federal funding. I'm WASDA. The We the People program used to have federal funding. It doesn't anymore. And it's a crucial program that urges kids to study and know something about the Constitution. And the debate format, I think, encourages that. So what I'm recommending is that WASDA supports federal funding for the We the People programs nationwide. These funds will be distributed via congressional district along with a reasonable state stipend. So this is a motivator for our kids and our students. And for each district then, we get X amount of money from the federal government here in Washington State. And so that can even cover, I believe, extra training for students, for teachers that are interested in doing it, and also provides us books. So it is a local concern after all, even though it's directed toward the national government. And I just wanted to introduce you to the concept this evening, and I'll be putting forth a formal motion next meeting.
Thanks, John. Do you have something?
No, just the forum last night, I guess, is the school involved thing, other than me being busy starting a business and doing crazy stuff. But yesterday I loved the turnout. I would love to have seen more, and heard more. But it was good. It was good.
Thanks. Well, I attended the 24-hour theater, and I don't know how many of you know what that is, but the drama department spends 24 hours on campus in the theater, creating, directing, casting, lighting, tech, all of it for the presentation. And it's a short one. It's about 30 to 40 minutes. They write their show, their play, around whatever costumes the 7 actresses or actors wore. It was fascinating, and I really enjoyed it, and those students did a great job, and the directors, they could have been from Hollywood. I mean, we had interactive conversation at the end, and we could ask questions, and they were very poised and answered all the questions, and I was very, very impressed. It's a great program. They're always looking for more money. If you're looking for a place to put a little extra cash, that would be a good place to put it. So that's all I have, and now the student board members.
Okay, so at the high school, we have a winter dance hopefully happening next Saturday if we can sell enough tickets. The DECA club and class had a competition today, and I think a lot of them made it to state.
Great.
And we have another student roundtable coming up next Wednesday. And then in ASB, we are currently working on a new project of how we can communicate better with the students. And it's going to be like a homeroom activity. We're hopefully going to be starting that next month.
Great. Another student forum coming up
Yes, on Wednesday.
this Wednesday?
Yes, the 23rd.
Okay.
Are you going to go to the Day on the Hill?
Yes.
Could you say just a word about that? What you got out of it?
I thought the Day at the Hill was a great event, and it was a great learning experience, and it was really good to be able to talk to our representatives and give our input and hear what they have to say about our input.
Super. Okay, we are now at the consent agenda. The consent agenda enables the board to efficiently deal with matters that have been delegated to the superintendent, but by law must be approved by the board. Items on the consent agenda are voted upon as one block and approved with one vote. An item may be removed from the consent agenda only on approval of a majority of the board. So I'm asking for a recommendation. A motion, please.
Madam Chairman, I move that we accept the consent agenda as written.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Motion approved. Okay, the next item would be, let me get down to it, board development and linkage, superintendent update.
Okay, we're doing something just a little bit different tonight, and we had hoped to do it in our December meeting that had to be rescheduled because of the storm. But I'm very pleased to be able to introduce Ben Johnson, who is the Shelton and North Mason Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition Coordinator, to tell you about a really great opportunity for a grant that he helped us pursue and get to support our students. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you for inviting me, and I'm really happy to be here. And yes, the North Mason Substance Abuse Prevention Coalition Coordinator, but I'm also the Shelton Coalition Coordinator, half and half. You guys have probably heard this story, maybe to do with education, but I'm going to tell it with a prevention twist. There's a river flowing, and somebody's floating down the river, and they're in trouble, People see that person and they snag that person out of the river and they save that person. And soon there's another person floating down the river. And they're flailing, they jump in and help that person out too. Maybe 2 or 3 more people. Why is this happening? So they go upriver and they see that people are up there camping, playing, doing their thing, but a fence is broken and every once in a while somebody falls through that fence. So to make a long story a little shorter, I guess, they repair that fence upriver, and that's what we call prevention. And I know that story's been used in other venues, but so we are trying to focus on what's going upriver with prevention before it becomes a problem. We know what a lot of the problems are, and prevention is one of those things that we have a very hard time really describing. I have a hard time describing, and that story helps me kind of describe it. So about 4 years ago, actually it's been a little bit longer than that, the state started getting more prevention funding. And Shelton, of course, was one of the first communities and was the first community in Mason County to get some. All 39 counties got at least one community funded. And of course, our North Mason partners are saying, how about us? And we were saying the same thing. But last year, we had an opioid forum, and out of that forum, a small group of folks, including Mrs. Cagwin, Joni Cagwin here at the school, we decided to just start our own coalition, prevention coalition, without any funding. She came down to the Shelton meeting a couple times and introduced herself, and we just started having a few meetings up here. So since then, we've had about 6 meetings. In the fall, we had an opportunity to apply for the grant. And what we said was, we're really ahead of the game in our request for proposal. We already have this coalition, we're already starting to do the work, and if we get it, we're going to hit the road running. So we got the funding.
All
And
right.
Great.
So consequently, we had to hit the road, you know, going. So what's the short of it is that we're starting 3 parenting programs now. We're not waiting for the strategic plan. That's something that I have to do, and I'm working with our group to get that accomplished. So a little bit of the cart before the horse, but the community said this is what we want to do, or at least the people that I'm working with said we want to get things started. So we have a program called Incredible Years, Guiding Good Choices, and what's the last name? Strengthening Families. Those are all parenting programs that we just got contracts for or with the Family Education Service Group. They have an office in Shelton, but they're going to be implementing it up here February, March, April. This funding has to be spent through June. We get new funding in July for prevention. So things are starting to happen. The other kind of cool program is called Peer-to-Peer, or Youth to Youth. And Joni and myself and another person who works at the health department went to a training last week to help our young people get educated in spreading that prevention message and maybe doing some advocacy, going to the legislation, maybe next year at this time, to get an opportunity maybe to talk about changing laws. There's all kinds of new vape things going on right now, big issue. You know, how do we maybe stop the advertising, or at least slow that down? It's everywhere. So this group, this youth group, are getting trained so they can go down to this younger youth and teach them some prevention messaging, media information, that sort of thing. Those are the 4 projects we're working on right now, other than trying to get the strategic plan done by March 29th. We're really happy that we're moving forward. There are other prevention programs we can possibly implement. And one of the other goals we want to do is maybe in the fall have a prevention day for the community. We're doing it in April in Shelton. It's for the entire county, but we want to have one maybe in September, October, or something like that.
Oh, that's great.
But that's where we're at. Everything's moving so fast right now, it's been kind of a whirlwind, but we're part of a larger opiate group had started with Chief Bo Bakken and some other folks in the community from the North End. They really got it going. And we're kind of an umbrella group, a prevention group. They're working with treatment, they're working with getting syringe exchanges going now that just started in the last few months. They come up here 1 day a week, and then we're partnering with Skokomish Tribe and the Squaxin Tribe, and they have it in Shelton also. So 4 days a week, or 4 places, 2 days a week, we have a syringe exchange in the community. And that literally started like 2 months ago.
That's awesome.
So we've been really busy. I've even had to go out and sit in on the syringe exchange just to help, on those days where they're short. I can try to answer any questions if you have any, but that's where we're at, and I'm just really excited and happy that we've got things going.
Well, it sounds great, and it sounds like you're doing really good work, you and Joni both.
Yeah, Joni's been a huge part of this.
She
so,
would be, right.
And she's going to be the youth advisor. We're contracting with the school district. I just sent a contract over for them to review. And the students, what we're asking them is to have the after-school prevention program with the students. And we'll be asking them to promote this drug take-back day in April and be part of safety days. And then they have to do at least, I think, 10 presentations. And our part, we're starting them off with $10,000 to get this youth program going. And it sounds like they may be getting another 5 from marijuana prevention money.
Wow.
So it's a great start for a youth program.
Good. That's great.
I just want to say, if there's, I'm the legislative rep for the board. If there's something that our state and national organization, WASDA, can do, maybe we can chat after the meeting or something like that. You've got the number. I guess my wife is on your committee, Brooke Quigley.
Oh, yeah. Just
yeah.
At the meeting,
Well,
we had a meeting before we
Yeah.
came here.
My agents are everywhere.
Yeah, I guess.
Anyway, if there's some legislative thing that you need, because this affects kids.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of thing that WASDA would want to get on board with, I would imagine. And it would be a good educational topic for any school in which they have Project Citizen to come up with an argument for
Yeah, absolutely.
whatever you're talking about.
Well, my guess it would be youth-led, whichever direction they want in prevention. We're not probably going to tell them. I mean, I have my own ideas.
Yeah.
Vaping is one of them, but and I'd hope that they would really think about that issue. Right now, the vape companies are able to advertise on television and radio just like they used to with all the cigarettes. So that's something I think groups like our youth group might be able to tackle, and it's powerful when youth are able to step up and use their voice. So,
Well, our group, Julie Lester's teacher that has been very active in our group, we actually did help change the state law once, and she's lost none of her sparkle, and hopefully she can give her kids the same muscle.
there you go.
So, anyway, there's school districts around the state that might be interested in this, wherever they have Project Citizen. We have 2 things, the We the Peoples for high school and the Project
okay.
Citizen. And they come up with their own topics. That's
Right.
what I meant.
Yeah.
And so this sounds like a great one to turn kids loose on.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, we want to give them some seed money so they can feel like, if they want to have a meeting and have pizza, they can do that. Or if they want to go to a youth conference, prevention conference, they can possibly do that and learn more. My take on this is the kids that actually are the presenters get so much more out of it than the kids that are actually getting it. But
Right.
because it really creates leadership, so. And
Best way to learn is to teach it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I look forward to seeing and hearing more as you grow. Very much
Sure,
so.
and I, be happy, maybe come back at the end of the school year and see how these
sure.
classes go, because it's the first time that we're doing these parenting classes up here, and hopefully we can build on, maybe, there's a program, one of the things that happens with these grants is we're kind of stuck in what they're require us to do, and it's a lot of evidence-based stuff, but there's one that's called Good Behavior Games that a lot of school districts have implemented. It's a process of coming here and presenting, letting you guys know what the curriculum's all about. But it's working with the younger kids, the first, second, third graders. So start getting some. And it's not like direct substance abuse messaging. It's more of how we treat each other type stuff.
You mentioned evidence-based and stuff, and
Yeah.
I'm just curious if you have some sense of, or if you can give us some sense of, what kind of positive effects does a community get from this sort of stuff? Is there some hard data on that, or not?
Well, the data that we end up using a lot is the Healthy Youth Survey. And, the interesting thing with the Healthy Youth Survey is the last Healthy Youth Survey, marijuana wasn't a big, it was about 2 years into it, and there wasn't much change. Now we're about 4 years into the new law, and we want to see how our youth are affected. Same thing with vaping. I think that's going to be interesting too. I hear stories of even teachers, having kids in the among the state, teachers having kids in the classroom, vaping. So.
Not in our classrooms, right?
Better not be.
Hopefully not. But you hear, I go to the workshops and the conferences, and people are telling these stories. So they're so easy to hide, and it's a vape, and there's some of it, there's no smell, and so I don't think that answered your question, but we go with the data we have, and that we use a lot of that data.
I would like to see down the road, if, some data, years
Yeah.
later.
Oh,
What
yeah.
kind of effects have we had compared to communities that didn't do something like that?
Right. Yeah. And not every community is, like I said, 82 communities. So,
Well, I'm really glad we're one of them.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
thank you for all your efforts and all
Good,
your
Thank you.
work.
Thank you.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Okay, and now we are at the budget status update.
Okay, so, we'll start with our other funds first for the budget status. So for capital projects, I was thinking,
They must have my computer system now.
the network has been slow today.
I
so-
trust that's not our balance.
I would hope not. We would probably be in dire situation if it was. I think it's thinking though.
Yeah, you can see it.
There we go. Okay, so, starting with capital projects for December, we received our last $325,000 payment from Greatview School District for their bond match. So we did receive that last payment. That brought our capital projects fund up to $2.6 million. Debt service, you can see that's a big decrease from November down to December. It's because I made all the debt payments. So we paid our voted debt and our non-voted debt and our leases. So that brought that down significantly. You're also going to see, when we start talking about the general fund, you're going to see the transfers from general fund over to debt service to pay for those non-voted debt payments. ASB, we're sitting right at $388,000 currently. Transportation vehicle fund, we received that $35,000 grant payment that I had been waiting for. So we received that, brought our fund balance up to $50,000, which I feel is much better than 15. So I was happy to see that. We definitely have plans to use that in combination with our $120,000 depreciation payment that we get in August to either purchase one full-size bus or two small buses. I've been waiting on some information from Maureen on which direction we're going. to help replace our fleet and get more buses on our depreciation schedule, which increases the amount that we get paid each August for our depreciation. So enrollment, we're still trending above what was budgeted. We're at, for the month of January, so this is our most current enrollment, we're at 2,263.7 FTE. We would, as you can see, we're trending literally exactly the same for the last 4 months. That's actually super solid for this time of the year. We're not seeing large decreases, even due to early graduation or anything like that, which means our enrollment in other areas are increasing to offset the early graduations, which is really good. We're going to see an impact to our general fund funding because of this increased enrollment here in January. I believe in about 5 days I'll get my new apportionment reports, which will show that increased funding based upon our increased enrollment over what we've been paid for through that budget process from September through December. In January they true up to actuals. So they've been paying us at a lower FTE amount. So in January, they'll realign and reallocate those funds, and we'll start receiving in what you could say is technically back pay. We'll receive larger chunks from January through June because of that.
Do we count our kindergartners still as 0.5?
No,
We think
kindergartners
they're
are full
1.0.
FTE,
Okay,
correct.
great.
Mhm.
So did you have any idea what the actual head count enrollment is?
Head count, we're right about 120 over our FTE, so we're close
23?
to 2,400
24.
head
Okay.
count.
Wow.
Yes. Okay, so we want to move to our dashboard, which it's thinking again. We'll start with revenues. There we go. So revenues right now, as far as total revenues, we're sitting at about 7% of our budgeted revenues to our fund balance. We don't actually utilize this percentage for our fund balance policy, but that just shows you where we're currently sitting. We're sitting at 7% of revenues. All of our other trends for total revenues, actual year to date, and then broken down by local and state, we're trending just above average at this point in the year, which is solid in what we would expect based upon the increased funding, both through local sources and through state sources. For our expenses, you're going to see that our percentage that we technically want to keep it at is that 8%. You're going to see that we dropped to 7.38 in December, but it's because of that $358,000 worth of transfers that I needed to do from the general fund over to the debt service fund to pay our debt payments. So we're going to see that drop in December, and it's going to go back up again in January. So it's a temporary drop due to those debt obligations. But as far as our actual expenditures, what we're spending the money on, we're trending just above average at this point across the board for both salaries and benefits and basic education. And our total expenditures year to date, this is in the little semicircle portion up towards the top, Denise. There you go. That sort of pink-ish colored one. Technically, year-to-date, we would be at 34.49% of total expenditures expended year-to-date at this point. We're sitting at 36.53, so just about 2% above average, which is what we would expect, because when we budgeted, we did not budget with the full capacity in mind of what we were going to be giving teachers for raises. So that increase, you can see even on the salary side, is about 3% above what we had budgeted and what we were paying in previous years. So the general fund month-end balances, which is our next page. For the month of December, our fund balance is currently sitting just above where it was in previous years, which is good and what we would expect to see based upon the increased funding. And in January, we're expected to be sitting right about 2.5 million, which is well above where we were in previous years. So our general fund financial summary, which goes into a little bit more detail as far as the line items for revenues and expenditures. It shows, this is where you'll see the information regarding the transfers from the general fund to debt service 359-101. which is the last line item above where you see total expenditures in the chart, in the second chart off to the side. Yep, if you scroll, there you go, there it is. So that's the transfers over to the debt service fund in order to pay our debt. Everywhere else, other than in our purchase services, we're trending right about average of where we should be as far as the amount of money that we've spent versus the amount we have budgeted in those areas. Our purchase services are higher only because we had hoped to fill those specialty positions that we weren't able to fill, and we had to contract out for those. So those ended up being higher than what we had originally anticipated. So the hopes is next year we'll be able to fill those specialty positions in-house and have them as employees and not necessarily contracted individuals. Our high-level financial forecast, which is our next page, you're going to see a lot of red. And you're going to see this quite a bit throughout the duration of the year. So the red on the top, that's where your revenues are, okay? So right now, our state general purpose, we've collected $92,000 less than what we would expect to collect at this point. That will true up here after our January count, so that's not super alarming at all. And then other school districts and other revenues, that varies wildly. One of them's 14,000 below what we would anticipate. The other one's 10,000 below what we would anticipate. We haven't billed out for some McKinney-Vento type transportation to other districts that will realign and bring that back up. Now, as far as the expenses go, that very first number that you can see is the largest number as far as a deficit right there of the 455,000. That number is going to continue to increase, and that's the difference between what we had budgeted for certificated salaries and benefits and what we actually ended up with and what we're paying out. So we're going to expect to see that increase there. Anytime there's any type of extra pay, extra days, anything like that, that number is going to compound. The classified salaries, again, we had given out a pay increase to our classified salaries that had not originally been anticipated at the time because we weren't open for negotiations, but we had given that pay raise just to make sure that everything was equitable, and that's why we're seeing the variance there as well. And then of course you're going to see a variance with benefits anytime our salaries, both certificate and classified, increase. Now below your purchase services, again, that goes hand in hand with our contracted employees that we have. Travel, we received significant increases in categorical funding. One of the ways we can spend categorical funding is through professional development, and we have to pay for travel for those individuals to get there. So we are seeing an increase in PD, and so we see an increase in travel related costs, and that's what we're seeing on that one. And capital outlay, unfortunately, we've had some storms and some projects come up that needed to be put on the books, and that's where we're seeing the increase there of just about 50,000 from what was originally anticipated and budgeted. Again, these numbers can change as the year goes on, and they'll continue to compound from there. So that's what I have as far as the financials go for the month of December. I'm super excited to share January with you though. I have it on my calendar and I'm counting down the days because I'm super excited to see what we're going to be getting as far as increased funding goes. Do you guys have any questions or comments about December?
Looks good.
Perfect, I think so too.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Okay, Feller Wetlands update.
Okay, as you know, last night we held a public meeting to gain input on the concept of the board transferring or in some way the Feller Wetlands and Trails property to the Department of Fish and Wildlife. We had 20 guests present. We had an hour and a few minutes of feedback and comments from folks. We were very pleased that people kind of felt like it was a little bit of a conversation and got to ask each other questions and clarify some ideas and share their thoughts. And you have in front of you about 3 pages of summary notes that Denise took from the night. We also have an email that you either received or will be receiving, 2 of them, one that was read last night from
Bruce.
Landrum, and also an email with some information that Ken referenced tonight. So you'll have that in front of you as well, as we kind of move forward with thinking and talking and decide what we do in the future. Just a couple brief comments in summary. The questions that people raised last night were very similar to the things that Mr. Van Buskirk shared with us at the beginning of the meeting today. In addition, there were concerns that various community members have had about increased use of the wetlands that could result from such a transfer by hunters and the safety of that for everybody that uses the wetlands, and wanting to ensure that if a transfer like that happens, that safety and accessibility for everyone is a key. Also, the concerns about because the Department of Fish and Wildlife is not a local organization, if at some point, what kinds of things would we include in a contract? Things like making sure that they're required to follow Mr. Theller's wishes that were included in the will, making sure that the community has access, making sure that the school maintains our classroom and access for education purposes for our students free of charge. The idea of including, if in any transfer agreement, a reversion clause, so that if any of those clauses are not upheld, the property would revert to the district, so the district could ensure that someone or whomever the district, everyone continues to make those things possible, the recreational access for our community, as Mr. Theller desired. So as you can read the comments in more detail. We have lots of different things that we need to do. The board has time to deliberate regardless. So do you have any questions, thoughts?
Well, I was pleased to hear the Department of Fish and Wildlife suggest a local committee.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that would be one way of staying local people being in touch with the thinking of Fish and Wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
So if their thinking turned in a direction we didn't want, we could perhaps deflect it in a more productive way. And I think Ken's suggestion this evening of having one of us on the board there, I think would be an excellent idea. Not that that would be the only people from Belfair on it.
Well, there was a lot of information last night and a lot of really good suggestions that came from that public forum. And I really respect the thought that went into the written correspondence that we got. And I do think that the next step for us would be to see a draft of a contract
Hear,
that
hear.
we would want the WDFW to agree to, or at least consider. And with all of those things in it, those contingencies that we're looking for, I don't know how much we can include in terms of the duck blinds and the hunters, but we can certainly include our concern
Mm-hmm.
about that. And the man, I think his name was Brian from WDFW, said that
Yes.
they would be establishing a wildlife area advisory committee for the Union River unit. And I don't know if they're gonna do that inevitably, whether they take our property or not. I'd like to think that they would. Did you get that from him, Ken? Did you understand?
Actually, I attended the meeting in December where he spoke in that the Union River part is part of the advisory group because it's a much broader,
Oh, okay.
than the Squally areas in it. There's a replaced by Philistine cement.
Okay.
But what I was getting at earlier is, I think the WDFW would be open to establishing a specific
Local.
advisory group for our area.
Okay, and maybe that could be
Yeah, we
somehow
discussed
included.
yesterday evening after
Okay.
the meeting, and I think that
Okay.
they're very open. I agree with Ken,
Okay.
and that could be included in any agreement that is floated.
Okay.
How
Does
do you-
the board agree that we could just ask Dana to start working on
Here,
a contract, a draft?
sounds good to me.
And then we could take a look at it at the next
Okay.
board meeting?
Sounds great.
Okay.
I think that additional benefit of that committee is if we continue to have problems, you'd think at some point they'd get the message, you know, that something has to be done.
Right.
Because I'm kayaked down that area myself, and there are clearly conflicts of usage, shall we say.
We heard that loud and clear last night, too.
Mhm.
Something that I didn't know about. So
Yeah.
that was good information.
I like the idea of the advisory committee that Ken brought up. I sit on a committee with the DNR. Herb Gerhardt goes to that regularly, just like I do and stuff, and that has actually been a model for the state, for DNR groups elsewhere, and it came from here in Belfair, Tahuya Forest and stuff. And the people that go to these meetings are the people that use the forest.
Mhm.
And they have, well, not necessarily a lot of clout. They sure have their voice, and it's heard. Some lively discussions, and sometimes things go really good, sometimes they don't go great. But the different groups have their chance to put in their input, and it does make a difference.
Okay.
So I'm real enthused about that aspect.
Okay. Okay, well, in that case, then you can march on with that order.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Teaching and learning update.
Okay, so there's lots of interesting things to tell you about, and actually, a lot of it coming from conversations we had today. But first, I want to recognize you all noticed as you came in, the parking lots are unusually full. It's second term conferences for the middle school and high school tonight, so a lot of families are in and out of the secondary buildings. As you know, the leadership team has been attending some professional development on how to grow as an effective team for change to support the board and the district's commitment to ensuring that we have an educational, have a school system that is here for the whole child, the whole school, and the whole community. And we've gotten a little bit deeper into that work. We spent some time in Olympia as a team again this week, and I was very proud of all of our principals and district office for very deep work that they're doing at looking at how to ensure that we do the right things to grow programs so that we're supporting the entire child, and through that growing the learning environments in our school and our interactions with our community, and hopefully soon developing additional partnerships with community members to support what we're doing in school. So that's very, very exciting. Also, as you know, we have a multi-year cycle for curriculum adoptions, and this year we're working on a really big one. It's actually a 2-year process this time because it's the literacy curriculum, and it's the most expensive one we always buy because it's the most stuff and materials great across all the grades, for starting with reading and writing in the elementary schools and all the way up through English 12. And so we do the elementary school stuff separately, and then next year we'll do the middle and high school. But we have a committee that's looking at a lot of materials, and they're starting to narrow it down, and that we'll be, posting selections. They haven't brought in the representatives to sell it to them yet from the companies. They're looking at things on their own, but and doing all of their research, and by the end of the year we'll have a recommendation to the board. But like we found with each of the recent curriculum adoptions, it doesn't look like it used to look.
Mhm.
So even with elementary reading, of the sets of materials, I guess is the best way to put it, that are still in the running. Only one of them looks like a reading book, like you would remember. Many of them are still look more like trade book based programs, so that there are a lot of little individual books that the teachers and students use for each unit, and there is a lot more emphasis because of our change in standards on nonfiction materials. So it's not just all stories and poems. There are still stories and poems, but in a kindergarten or first grade curriculum, you're going to see a lot more emphasis on things like the life cycle, and in third grade, the water cycle, or, so there's a lot of science embedded in the work, and there's a lot of technology. And so the teachers have some really interesting decisions to make, because they're going to have to decide how much technology and exactly what needs to be addressed, and how well the materials help them support the needs of all the kids we have, because we can't just buy a reading book and say it's good for everybody. We have to be able to address a lot of different needs. So those decisions are getting much more complicated, and our team is doing a really good job. So that will be very exciting to see what they bring to you soon as well.
Do we have the technology to support
We
that?
do. And the other big thing is we are going to be engaging, starting at Cabinet here. We started today, but we are we're reaching a tipping point with devices. So right now, for example, if you went up to the high school and counted the devices that we have deployed throughout the school, we almost have enough right now that every high school kid could be taking a device home with them every day.
Wow.
So instead of going to math and pulling the device off the board and using it for my math lesson, and then putting it off the cart and putting it back, and going to science and using another one, and going next to social studies and using another one, we've been developing a plan for that, but we're probably really close to when we make the transition towards a one-to-one deployment. So that's going to be really exciting.
Yeah.
And
And
it
would
will be
all-
part of our budgeting process too. So that will be interesting
I see.
going forward.
The finance
See,
director's
we
eyes
keep not
are really
we keep
big.
not inviting her to the spending
Yeah.
meetings, because it's not helpful until we're ready
Yeah.
to have her tell us no.
Yeah, I tell them how much money we have, and then they have the meeting about spending the money.
Yeah. So
There wouldn't be a unit on that on the legislative cycle, would there?
Well, unfortunately, we keep as a smaller, because we're not very small anymore, rural district, but it's something that needs to come up repeatedly, because, our governor, for example, is a very big proponent of technology. But when our legislators and other decision makers think they're making decisions about technology and learning for kids based on what's possible in Bellevue, with an assumption that that's possible everywhere else.
Right.
That still is a problem. So part of what is still holding us back, and we think we have a solution, so we're pretty excited without the governor's help, but we still have neighborhoods where families do not have connectivity. And so for us, it would be an equity issue to send everybody home with a computer, but it only works for some people, and the other people have no access to their learning. So we are working with a company called Khajiit that provides these little devices that we can also send home with the computer, that expands the access, and I really cannot explain that to you. Probably Garrett could, but
If you could, I
anyway.
wouldn't understand anyway.
Right. It ties in with phone towers and everything else to extend access, so without cost to those families. So we're working on that. We are piloting a few, sending them with individual kids or other staff members that live in our most remote areas, and finding out what the bugs are, and then working with Khajiit. They're actually partnering with us to. Some things that they have sent us haven't worked, and so they've made tweaks, and we're working on it. So we hope that will help us get what we need.
That would be great. Dawn? Oh.
Right.
Well, yes, we could maybe send one home with art. That would be good.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay, the community linkage planning and message of the month. We have a list of community meetings and events there that we're all able to go to if we choose to. How many of you are planning to go to the student forum on Wednesday, next Wednesday? John, do you know if Craig is going?
I think so, if he's
He
not
usually
working.
does.
Okay,
But I'm not sure what his work.
okay, so it's gonna be Craig and John then. We try not to have 3 board members there. at
If
the same
someone
time.
would really like to go, I'd be happy to defer.
Well, the students will probably be there.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay. All right, and the upcoming board letter, I'm up for February, and Art, you have March, and Craig has April.
I would just like to interrupt and remind everybody, because it was kind of hidden in some things, and I don't think we got it onto our calendar, but Representative Kilmer is hosting a town hall meeting on Saturday, January 26th. At what time, Laura?
3 o'clock at
3
the
p.m.
high school.
At our high school, so I think that's good to give every opportunity we can to invite the community to be there, so I know I will be.
He
It will
wants
be-
to hear
Hopefully they will
directly.
have a solution to the current problem in DC by now, but
I know
it
he's
will
good
be
at-
interesting.
He's good at answering questions. I only saw him the first time that he came here, when they were down in the basement. The
Mhm.
Community Voice was down in the basement, and he was really good about people that were soft-spoken and people that weren't so soft-spoken, and he was really good at answering questions.
Yeah.
He was good about that.
All right, thank you. All right, we're at Assurance of Organizational Performance and Policy Review. We reviewed and discussed these 2 policies last month, communication and counsel to the board and budget execution. Do you have anything further that you'd like to add this month?
Nope.
Anything?
No.
Okay, so we are now at adjournment. Our next board meeting date is February 21st. I'll be doing the board self-assessment. And good of the order comments. Anything from the board? No? Anything from our guests tonight? No? Thanks for coming, everybody. It's nice to see people out there besides just the finance director.
But we
And
love
Don
seeing you,
LaPierre. Okay, we'll be adjourning into executive session for the purpose of discussing the superintendent's mid-year evaluation for approximately 30 minutes, and no action will be taken as a result of that. So I'm going to adjourn right now, and we'll move in there.
Student board members would like to know if they should participate.